Hello and welcome to Saturday the 17th, Day to Day with St. Joseph. It's Father Barry, the host of this program. And the last two programs we talked about the impact of Vatican I, Vatican II, and not introducing, but getting more of St. Joseph in the church. And it's resulted then in a follow-up where the Bishop Karol Wojtyła ended up becoming Pope John Paul II, Saint. And he wrote this document that we're going to quote today, St. Joseph, Guardian of the Redeemer, about how special Jesus considers Joseph. And then there's a whole field of understanding Joseph better called Josephology. And this book here that I purchased, St. Joseph Studies, has studies of 1977 and 2001 on symposiums on St. Joseph. So you can see that there's plenty going on. In the church, Pope Francis has introduced all the Eucharistic prayers now having St. Joseph in them. Oh, and out of that Josephology book, they do a study on art and how Joseph was included in art even 500 years ago with this Italian oil on canvas artwork by Vecchio, and then as well as in a church that's up in a fresco up on a wall in a church in Florence that Joseph is depicted there. And so we go way back with the influence of Joseph in our lives, but in modern times, we are experiencing the fruits of the renewal of the church, and with Vatican I and II, the renewal led with Joseph. And he's in the 4 Eucharistic prayers now, not just one, which was introduced at Vatican II, but now Pope Francis, May 1st, 2013, asked for Joseph to be in all the 4 Eucharistic prayers. I'll read one of them to you. And then when Pope John Paul II writes all that about Joseph, it influences then a bishop down in South America who's now Pope Francis, about how Jesus honors Joseph so much. Here's a painting of Jesus crowning Joseph in heaven. It's a 2019 painting. It's from the Father Calloway collection that you see in the back of his book. And so now we get to today, and we have this need for the universal holiness, that we are called to be holy together and to use the help of one another and of a holy Joseph. We think of the Padre Junipero Serra in California, its missions, and how he saw a universal call of holiness back at the start of our nation when he was in California. Pope Francis has continued the call to universal holiness, and when he came to the National Shrine a few years ago to elevate Junipero Serra to sainthood, he said that it was amazing of the influence of the Holy Family on that saint, on that missionary saint who started all those missions, and in protecting the rights of the native peoples there, and seeing the new Spaniards coming and not showing the respect that the gospel gives to all peoples for a call of together holiness. Junipero walked all the way to Mexico City to protest to the property authorities about what those missions are all about out there. And so now we're going to go to the exhortation by John Paul on universal holiness. And that's a picture of John Paul here with Joseph. And yes, you heard it right. Our hero for evangelization and respect of all peoples in the gospel, Joseph here, and of course Jesus in the heart of Junipero Serra, encouraged him in the 1770s while out in California to go all the way back to Mexico City and to protest the Spanish who were ruling Mexico and this territory of California, and saying that the mission of the gospel is getting interfered with a lot of military and colonization efforts and sinful behavior, and he wanted to communicate that to the Spanish authorities. Then he goes back to California to the missions. Serra traveled 24,000 miles in his efforts there in those missions and back from Mexico to California. He, the missionary that came from Spain, a theology teacher, and came at 36 years old across the Atlantic to come and do missionary efforts to the New World. And today we invoke him as the saint for respect for the universal call of holiness. So Pope John Paul II says, as we trust in St. Joseph's sure protection, the Church also trusts in his noble example, which transcends all individual states of life and service as a model for the entire Christian community, whatever the condition and duties of each of its members may be. It is difficult to imagine with how much diligence, fidelity, and love St. Joseph carried out his mission to Jesus by exercising his paternal authority and his responsibility, his dedication, his service. With love and out of love, St. Joseph consecrated his life entirely to the Messiah and to the demands of his kingdom, thus becoming the unsurpassable model of all those who sincerely wish to follow Jesus. That is why the Church asks in her liturgical prayer that she may cooperate faithfully in the work of salvation and serve God with that same fidelity and purity of heart that inspired St. Joseph. And it goes on in this book here, as we are disposed then to serve the incarnate Word, the Son of God, then we must understand that this service is a vocation. We have a call from God, and so we must be faithful to this vocation of loving Jesus in our hearts and with others, loving Jesus and serving Jesus. John Paul's convinced that, he says, by reflecting upon the way that Mary's spouse shared in the divine mystery, the Church, on the road towards the future with all of humanity, will be enabled to discover ever anew our own identity within this redemptive plan, founded on the mystery of the Incarnation. So he's challenging us in our universal call to holiness to realize that the Incarnation is still going on. God is with us, Emmanuel. He is. And lastly, in this book again, he says, to affirm that Joseph was a type of the gospel, that is, a type of a man who welcomes God unconditionally, he said, what a wondrous gift that Jesus had in Joseph. What a wonderful model, the one he called Father, and he accepted as his educator and teacher, because Joseph was so completely disposed to the will of God and to carry out humbly and faithfully the divine plan as laid out for him. Yes, Christianity raises us to that lofty destiny that we too can be good and authentic followers of Christ, not necessarily called to great things, but common things, and to be true and authentic as people of faith. This is Father Barry. I hope you enjoyed our program today. May God richly bless you. Amen.